Welcome to another episode of Bible Bites. We're taking a look at Philippians 2:25 through 30. Paul writes, I have thought it necessary to send to you Epaphroditus, my brother and fellow worker and fellow soldier, and your messenger and minister to my need. For he has been longing for you all and has been distressed because you heard that he was ill. Indeed, he was ill, near to death. But God had mercy on him, and not only on him, but on me also, lest I should have sorrow upon sorrow. I am the more eager to send him, therefore, that you may rejoice at seeing him again, and that I may be less anxious. So receive him in the Lord with all joy, and honor such men, for he nearly died for the work of Christ, risking his life to complete what was lacking in your service to me. Uh, what an interesting passage. In the last passage, we talked about the fact that what Paul was doing was laying out human models for that Christ-centered, Christ-like living of self-sacrifice and humility. Timothy was the first model. We looked at that last time, and this time, what Paul is doing is he's looking at Epaphroditus. But I want you to notice something interesting here in verse 25. The way Paul describes Epaphroditus is fascinating. He says he wants to send to you Epaphroditus, and then he gives three descriptions: my brother, fellow worker, and fellow soldier. So to Paul, he found this deep relationship with this Epaphroditus. He felt that Epaphroditus was a co worker, a co soldier with him. They were fighting for the same cause. This is somewhat similar to what he says about Timothy. But this is how he sees him. He is my brother. One of the things that we have to know about brothers in that world, Joseph Hellerman, a scholar, says this. He says exactly the opposite is the case for Mediterranean antiquity. Treachery in its most extreme, despised, and therefore engrossing form is not the breakup of a marriage, but strife among blood brothers. In other words, the relationship of brother is the deepest relationship you can imagine. And so Paul is saying, look, he's my brother. But to you, notice this, he's your messenger and minister to my need. In other words, the Philippians and their relationship with Epaphroditus is such that he came from them to minister to Paul. Paul now sees him as his own brother and co-worker and co-soldier for the cause of the gospel. Indeed, he says he was near death, and if he had died, there would be sorrow upon sorrow for Paul. That was the depth of the relationship they had. And interestingly about Epaphroditus, look that he'd been distressed because the Philippians who sent him heard that he was ill and almost died. He was upset that they were concerned for him. So he has a heart for them. He's more concerned about them than the risk he was taking for them to minister to Paul. You see the selflessness that's developing there. Paul says he's eager to send him back, verse 28, that you may rejoice in seeing him. He nearly died for the work of Christ. This is a really interesting kind of two different models going on here. Epaphroditus and the way he's willing to risk his life to serve Paul and serve the Philippians or serve Paul on their behalf. We're seeing Paul who's willing to send back someone who's that important to him. He's willing to kind of sacrifice him by saying, okay, go back and serve them because I care about what's happening with them more than the ministry you're doing to me. I'm sure Epaphroditus was helping the way it was in prisons at that time, that you needed someone who was outside to bring food and clothing and things that you needed inside. It's a very interesting model. Do we have this kind of relationship with other individuals as well as with a group, the church? Do we serve on behalf of the local body? What does that look like in our lives? Are we living out the gospel the way both Epaphroditus as well as Paul do here? I hope so. Until next time.